Well, let's take a closer look now at the deals that were announced by President Trump and President Xi. They're worth $250 billion, but there is some fine print.
That's right. China says it could pump $100 billion into two U.S. energy projects, one in West Virginia, another in Alaska. The fine print, though, it is spread over 20 years, and the deals are only a memorandum of understanding, which means there's no guarantee they'll actually go through.
Yeah, China says it is buying 300 planes from Boeing, but more fine print. It is not clear how many of these orders are new and how many were already in place. A similar deal was actually announced back in 2015. And Qualcomm, the US chip maker, says it will sell more parts for Chinese phones.
And the fine print again here, it is non-binding, and China already accounts for half of Qualcomm's sales. For more details on these deals and the complex trade relationship between the United States and China, let's talk now with Peter Mathews in Los Angeles. He is a political analyst and a professor of political science at Cypress College. Appreciate you joining us. Regarding this $250 billion deal, I mean, that's kind of the way it is on these grand big state visits, right? I mean, these kinds of agreements are typically non-binding. So how should we see this? Is this more of a goodwill gesture from the Chinese?
I think it's not only a goodwill gesture, it's also on President Trump's part an attempt to show that he's actually doing something about the trade deficit. It was about $648 billion and about $300 billion deficit on a $648 billion trade. So Trump wants to show he's doing something for American workers, but it is blown up actually more than what it really is, as you guys pointed out very well a few minutes ago. But nevertheless, it's something significantly enough that he's moving in the direction of trying to get more American trade with China balanced in our benefit as well.
Yeah, we were saying earlier in the program that we all heard what President Trump said during the campaign, and whether it's moderation or hypocrisy, I mean, he's done a complete 180 on the what he thinks of China, from raping the country and the biggest theft ever to being incredibly warm and it's not your fault. Is he playing a smart game, do you think? What can he do about that trade deficit?
Well, there's not a whole lot he can do unless China is willing to do something. One thing is that the Chinese workers are paid a lot less than American workers, and that encourages American corporations to go to China and have cheap labor to make more profits. But he can try to open up some of the sectors in China to American trade. For example, automobiles. In order for a car company to open up in China, they have to be partners with another company in China. They can't do it on their own. And those kinds of things, he wants to reduce those types of barriers to be able to have more international investment both ways. I don't believe you can stop globalization. You can make it more humane. You can make it work better for the Chinese workers and for American workers as well, and for American exports of jobs, exports of goods, which would create more jobs here. But for that, the Chinese workers have to have more money in their hands, in their pockets, to buy our products. And our government should actually do what China has done over there, is support and subsidize industries to be able to export products, so it would be new products into China and to other countries as well. It's called industrial policy. Japan, China, and Germany have a very strong industrial policy. We do not. Right. And Trump is not talking about that at all.
Well, it's really not a level playing field, though, because you're talking about, how some of these U.S. companies in China are being treated. Talk more about that and, how the playing field could be leveled. Would China be up for that?
In two ways. One, of course, is to open up more markets and get President Xi to go ahead and agree with that, and the Chinese government to agree with it. And the second is to insist on higher wages and labor standards and environmental standards in China to even out the playing field in terms of competition. And there's a third one also, and that is to make sure that the American government produces some type of support for our businesses to be able to create new products and export them, as the German government does with their export products. The Chinese government also has a lot of support for their businesses. For example, the State Bank in China produces a lot of money and capital for new businesses to get started, and then promotes the products around the world of those businesses. So those kinds of trade, what we call industrial policies, have to be pursued here. And President Trump is not talking about that part of it. And I think that would help a lot.
Yeah, there's no sign of that actually happening. China, in Mr. Xi's word, is a new choice for other countries. I mean, you've got a man there that is embracing trade pacts that in case of TPP, that the US has rejected under Trump. You see Mr. Xi taking a bigger role at the World Bank. He's being nicer with the IMF and the World Trade Organization. How much has the US retreat and Mr. Xi's advance, what has that done to the US position in terms of not just global leadership, but strategically with trade?
Strategically, it weakens the U.S. position with trade and also reduces the number of exports that we could come up with to other countries and create jobs here. It reduces American influence all around the world, and that has to be reversed. Look at China's new Silk Road policy, or the Belt and Road policy of building infrastructure throughout different countries in the region and throughout the world. China has exported trains, those electric trains that they have in China of 200 miles per hour to Turkey and other countries. The U.S. has not been doing that kind of thing to help with infrastructure with other countries as well. So the U.S. prestige in the world is at stake here. And China is a rising power in soft power, as well as some of its hard power. The U.S. has just been relying mostly on hard power and has not been developing its soft power much. And Trump doesn't seem to be turning that around yet.
Yeah, in so many ways, Trump and Xi just on very divergent
Very
paths.
different.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. Peter Mathews, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Professor.
Thank you.